Welcome to Learn English with Roast, where we focus on real conversations, fun learning, and daily English.
Hey everyone. Imagine this for a second. People hear your voice but still misunderstand who you really are. What if the way you speak about yourself is actually shaping how the world treats you?
That's a strong thought, Jessica. And I think today's topic is something everyone needs. Because personality isn't just what you are, it's what you show, how you speak, and how you make people feel when you enter a room.
Exactly, Rayan. So let's start right there. If someone asked you right now, describe your personality, would you freeze, overthink, or confidently answer in English?
Most people struggle here, not because they don't know themselves, but because they don't know the English expressions to explain themselves naturally.
And that's what we're fixing today. So let's start with a powerful way to introduce yourself. Not boring, like I am a good person, but real, natural, and confident.
Before that, quick question for everyone listening. Do you think personality is fixed, or do we change it depending on people and situations?
Interesting question. Keep that in mind while we talk, because by the end, your answer might change.
Now listen to this. Instead of saying, I am shy, a natural speaker might say, I take time to open up, but once I'm comfortable, I become really expressive.
That sounds completely different, right? Same personality, but smarter expression, more natural English, more real life impact.
And that's the secret. You don't just describe personality, you explain behavior. That's how native speakers talk.
Let's go deeper. If I say, I am confident, it sounds simple. But if I say, I feel confident when I'm speaking about things I understand well, it becomes more human.
Yes, and that adds depth. Personality is not one word, it's layers.
Now imagine you are in a job interview, and they ask you, how would you describe your personality?
Most learners panic. But here's a strong response style. I would say I'm someone who adapts quickly. I enjoy learning from people around me, and I stay calm even in pressure situations.
That's powerful, not because of big vocabulary, but because of clarity and structure.
Let's make it interactive. Think right now. What's one word you always use for your personality? Just one word.
Now hold that word, and we're going to upgrade it throughout this podcast into natural English that sounds fluent.
And remember, personality in English isn't about sounding perfect. It's about sounding real, honest, and expressive.
So stay with us. Because next, we'll break down how your personality changes in different situations and how to talk about it like a native speaker naturally does in daily life. Have you ever noticed something strange? You act differently with friends, differently with strangers, and completely differently in serious situations.
That's exactly what makes personality so interesting, Jessica. It's not one fixed version of you. It's flexible. It shifts depending on context.
But here's the problem. Most learners still try to describe themselves using only one sentence, like, I am funny or I am quiet. That's not enough in real communication.
Right. Native speakers rarely describe personality in one label. They explain situations. For example, I can be funny when I'm comfortable, but in formal situations, I stay more reserved.
That sounds so natural. And notice, no complicated grammar, just clear thinking.
Let's go deeper. Imagine someone asks, are you outgoing? Instead of just saying yes or no, you can say, it depends on the environment. Around close friends, I'm very outgoing, but in new places, I observe first.
That's real communication. It shows awareness about yourself.
Quick audience question. Do you act the same way in every group of people? Or do you change your behavior?
Most people will say no. And that's why learning personality expressions is so important.
Another strong phrase you can use is, it takes me time to adjust to new people. That instantly sounds natural and honest.
Or, I'm not the most talkative person at first, but I warm up quickly. That warm up expression is very commonly used in English.
And here's something important. Don't try to sound impressive. Try to sound accurate.
Because personality is not about showing off vocabulary. It's about showing understanding of yourself.
Let's take another example. Instead of saying, I am emotional, you can say, I tend to feel things deeply, especially when it comes to people I care about.
That feels much more mature and expressive.
Now think about your own life. When do you feel most like yourself?
That question alone helps you understand how to describe your personality better.
And here's the key idea. Your personality description should change depending on context, not stay one fixed sentence.
Exactly. And in the next section, we'll explore how confidence in speaking your personality can completely change how people respond to you in real life. Let's go deeper into something most learners never realize. Your personality in English is not about what you say once, it's about how consistently you express yourself in different situations.
Exactly, Jessica. And this is where many English learners get stuck. They learn sentences like, I am friendly or I am confident, but they don't know how to expand that into real life speaking.
And in real life, nobody talks about personality in one sentence. People explain it through stories, situations, and behavior patterns.
So let's build that skill today. Imagine someone asks you, what kind of person are you? Most learners panic and say something short like, I am nice.
But a natural speaker would never stop there. They would say something like, I would say I'm someone who takes time to open up, but once I feel comfortable, I become very expressive and easy to talk to.
Notice that? It doesn't just label personality, it describes a journey. That's what makes it sound natural and fluent.
Let's push this further. If someone asks, are you a confident person? You don't need to say yes or no directly. You can say, it depends on the situation. When I know the topic well, I feel very confident, but in new environments, I observe first before speaking.
That's powerful because it shows awareness. You're not pretending to be one fixed personality. You're showing flexibility.
And here's a question for everyone listening. Do you think confidence is something you are born with, or something that changes depending on experience?
Think about that, because your answer actually changes how you describe your personality in English.
Now let's add emotional depth. Instead of saying, I am emotional, you can say, I tend to feel things deeply, especially when it comes to people I care about, and sometimes I take time to process my emotions.
That sounds natural, mature, and honest. It doesn't sound like textbook English. It sounds like real communication.
And that's the goal. Because personality is not vocabulary, it's expression of self.
Let's take another real life example. Imagine you're meeting someone new. They ask, are you outgoing?
A beginner might say, yes, I am outgoing. But a more fluent response would be, around close friends, I'm very outgoing and talkative. But in new groups, I stay quiet at first and observe the environment.
That answer tells a full story about your behavior in different situations.
Now, here's something important. Many learners try to sound perfect, but native speakers focus on sounding real.
Exactly. You don't need perfect grammar to describe personality. You need clarity, structure, and honesty.
Let's build another example. Instead of saying, I am shy, you can say, I take time to feel comfortable around new people, but once I do, I open up a lot.
That single change makes your English sound 10 times more natural.
Now let's make this interactive. Think about yourself for a moment. What is one situation where your personality completely changes?
Is it when you are with friends, or when you are in public, or maybe when you are under pressure?
Because that exact difference is what you should use when describing yourself in English.
Let's go deeper. Another strong expression is, I'm someone who adjusts quickly to different environments.
Or I prefer to observe first before I express my opinion.
These are not just sentences, they are personality signals. They tell people how you think, not just who you are.
And here's something very important. Personality in English interviews or conversations is not about sounding impressive. It's about sounding consistent and self-aware.
For example, in an interview, instead of saying, I am hardworking, you can say, I like to stay focused on my tasks, and I make sure I complete things properly rather than rushing them.
That sounds far more professional and real.
And it also makes you memorable because you are describing behavior instead of just using adjectives.
Now let's challenge the audience again. If you had to describe your personality without using words like good, nice, funny, or shy, how would you do it?
That's difficult at first, but that's exactly how you grow your English speaking ability.
Because fluency is not just about grammar, it's about thinking in descriptions instead of labels.
And once you learn this, you stop translating your thoughts word by word and start expressing naturally.
Now imagine this transformation. Earlier you said, I am shy, but now you say, I take time to feel comfortable, but once I adjust, I can communicate easily and confidently.
Same personality, completely different impact.
And that's the real power of English speaking. Not changing who you are, but changing how clearly you express who you are.
Exactly, Jessica. Because in real life, we don't speak the same way to friends, teachers, strangers, or in professional situations. And that shift is part of personality too.
But here's where learners struggle. They learn one fixed description of themselves and try to use it everywhere. That's why their English sounds unnatural or robotic.
Right. Native speakers don't have one fixed personality sentence. They have flexible expressions depending on context.
Let's start with casual situations. Imagine you're talking to a friend and they ask, What kind of person are you?
In casual English, you can say something like, I'm pretty chill most of the time, but I can get serious when something really matters to me.
That sounds natural because it's relaxed. Words like pretty chill are commonly used in spoken English.
Now compare that to a formal situation like an interview. You cannot use the same tone. You need structure and clarity.
Exactly. Instead of casual phrases, you might say, I would describe myself as someone who stays calm under pressure and adapts quickly to new situations.
Same personality, different tone. That's the key idea.
Let's go deeper. Another common question is, how would your friends describe you?
This is interesting because now you are talking about yourself indirectly. You can say, my friends would probably say I'm supportive and easy to talk to, especially when someone needs help or advice.
That sounds natural because you are not directly praising yourself. You are reporting what others think.
And that is very powerful in English communication. It makes your personality sound more believable.
Now let's add emotional personality expressions. For example, instead of saying, I am sensitive, you can say, I tend to react emotionally to situations, especially when people I care about are involved.
That sounds more thoughtful and controlled. It shows self awareness.
Here's a question for everyone listening. Do you think your personality changes when you are stressed?
Most people will say yes, and that's important because personality is not static. It reacts to emotions, pressure, and environment.
Let's build more natural expressions. Instead of saying, I am confident, you can say, I feel more confident when I'm prepared and familiar with the topic.
Or instead of, I am shy, you can say, I take time to feel comfortable in new environments, but I become more open once I adjust.
Notice something? These sentences don't label you, they explain you.
And that's what makes your English sound fluent and real.
Let's talk about group situations. Imagine you were in a group project. How would you describe your role or personality there?
You could say, in group settings, I usually listen first and then share my thoughts once I understand everything clearly.
That shows intelligence and patience. It also sounds very natural in academic or professional English.
Now let's make it even more practical. Think about your daily life. Are you the same person at home, at school, and with strangers?
That question helps you realize something important. Your personality has layers, not one definition.
And when you speak English, you should reflect those layers.
Let's try another example. Instead of saying, I am friendly, you can say, I find it easy to connect with people when I feel comfortable in the environment.
That feels more realistic and less like a memorized sentence.
Now here's a challenge for the audience. Try describing your personality without using any single word adjectives.
That means no funny, nice, shy, or confident, only explanations.
It might feel difficult, but that is exactly how you move from basic English to advanced natural speaking.
Because advanced English is not about complexity, it's about expression.
And when you learn to describe yourself like this, people don't just hear your words, they understand your thinking.
In the next section, we'll go even deeper into how personality influences first impressions and how your English can make you sound more confident instantly in real conversations.
Let's talk about something very powerful now, first impressions. Because before people even understand your personality, they judge how you speak in the first few seconds.
Exactly, Jessica. And this is where English becomes extremely important. Not just grammar, but how naturally and confidently you express yourself from the very beginning.
Think about it. When you meet someone new, you don't get a second chance for a first impression. Your tone, your confidence, and your words all create a picture of your personality instantly.
And many learners don't realize this. They know English, but they hesitate, and that hesitation changes how people perceive their personality.
So let's fix that. Imagine someone asks you, tell me about yourself. Most people give short, boring answers like I am a student or I am a simple person.
But a stronger answer sounds like this. I would describe myself as someone who is curious and open to learning new things, and I enjoy improving myself step by step.
That already sounds more confident and structured. It shows personality instead of just information.
Now let's go deeper. First impressions are not just about what you say, but how you frame it.
For example, instead of saying I am nervous in new situations, you can say I take some time to feel comfortable in new environments, but I gradually become more confident as I adjust.
That completely changes the impression. You are not sounding weak, you are sounding aware and balanced.
Here's a question for everyone listening. Do you think confidence is something people can immediately see in your voice?
The answer is yes. Even before they understand your words fully, they feel your energy.
That's why personality in English is not only vocabulary, it's delivery.
Let's take another real example. Imagine you are meeting someone in a group for the first time. You want to introduce your personality.
You could say, I'm someone who prefers to observe first and then join the conversation when I feel comfortable.
That sounds honest and natural, and it actually makes you sound thoughtful, not shy.
Now compare it with a weaker version. I am shy. That feels final, closed, and limiting.
Exactly. One is a label, the other is an explanation.
Let's build more natural expressions. Instead of I am confident, you can say, I feel confident when I have enough time to prepare and understand what I'm doing.
Or instead of I am friendly, you can say I find it easy to connect with people once I feel comfortable in the environment.
These sentences are powerful because they sound real. They show conditions, not labels.
And that is how native speakers describe personality. They explain situations, not just identity.
Let's talk about emotional first impressions too. Imagine someone asks, what kind of person are you under pressure?
You can say, I try to stay calm under pressure and focus on solving one thing at a time instead of getting overwhelmed.
That sounds very controlled and mature. It builds a strong personality image instantly.
Now let's pause for a moment and think. If someone only hears you for 10 seconds, what personality do they feel from your English?
That's a powerful question because most people never think about it.
And here's something important. Your personality is not just what you are, it's what people understand about you in a short time.
So if your English is hesitant, unclear, or too short, people might misunderstand your personality completely.
But if your English is calm, structured, and expressive, you automatically appear more confident and self aware.
Let's make it practical again. If you were asked in a casual setting, what are you like?
You could say, I'm usually quiet at first, but I open up once I feel comfortable with people.
That sounds natural, simple, and real.
And now here's your challenge. Try thinking about how you introduce yourself in the first 10 seconds of meeting someone new.
Because that moment is where your personality begins to form in their mind.
And in the next part, we'll go deeper into how to control your personality expression in conversations so you can sound confident, natural, and fluent no matter who you're talking to.
Let's go even deeper now, because there is something most English learners never focus on. Your personality is not only what you say about yourself, it's also how you respond in real conversations.
Exactly, Jessica. And this is where real fluency starts. Not in memorized lines, but in how naturally you react when someone talks to you.
Think about it. In real life, nobody gives you time to prepare your personality description. You have to respond instantly, and that response shows your true communication personality.
And that's why we need flexible English expressions, not fixed sentences.
Let's imagine a real situation. Someone says to you, you seem like a quiet person. How do you respond?
Many learners might just say yes or no. But a natural response would be, I can be quiet at first, but once I get comfortable, I become more open and talkative.
That's powerful because you are not agreeing or disagreeing blindly. You are explaining.
And that explanation is your personality in action.
Now let's take another example. Someone says, you look very confident.
Instead of just saying thank you or yes I am, you can respond. I try to stay confident, especially when I know what I'm doing, but I also keep learning to improve myself.
That sounds humble, natural, and very fluent at the same time.
Here's a question for everyone listening. Do you think your personality stays the same when you are talking to different types of people?
Think about that carefully, because your answer will help you understand how to control your speaking style.
Now let's talk about disagreement situations. This is very important for personality expression.
Imagine someone says something you don't agree with. Instead of saying a direct no, you can say, I see your point, but I think my experience has been a bit different.
That sentence shows respect, balance, and confidence at the same time.
And that is a very strong personality trait in English, being respectful but still expressing your own view.
Let's go deeper. Instead of saying, I am emotional, you can respond in conversation like, I tend to react strongly to certain situations, especially when they are important to me.
That sounds controlled and self-aware, not negative.
Now let's talk about group conversations. Imagine you are in a discussion and someone asks your opinion suddenly.
A natural personality-based response could be, I usually take a moment to think before I share my opinion, because I like to understand the situation fully.
That tells people you are thoughtful, not confused or silent.
And here's something very important. Silence is not a personality weakness. It can also be a personality strength if you explain it correctly.
Exactly. Instead of thinking, I don't speak much, so I am shy, you can say, I prefer listening first and then speaking when I feel I have something meaningful to add.
That completely changes how people perceive you.
Now let's make it practical again. If someone interrupts you in a conversation, how do you react?
A strong personality response could be, let me finish my point first, then I would love to hear your thoughts.
That is respectful but also confident. It shows control over communication. Let's ask the audience again. Do you think being polite means staying silent? Or does it mean expressing yourself clearly?
That's an important question because many learners confuse politeness with silence.
But real personality in English is about balance, respect plus expression.
And when you master this, your personality becomes visible in every conversation you have.
In the next part, we'll focus on how to describe personality in storytelling form. So you don't just talk about who you are, you show it through real life examples and experiences.
Now let's talk about something that changes everything in your English speaking: storytelling. Because when you tell stories, you don't need to say, I am confident or I am shy. People automatically understand your personality.
Exactly, Jessica. Personality becomes visible through your experiences, not just adjectives. The way you describe situations shows who you are more than any single sentence ever can.
Think about it. If I say I am brave, it sounds simple. But if I tell a story about facing a difficult situation and how I handled it, people feel that bravery instead of just hearing the word.
That's the power of storytelling. It shows personality instead of labeling it.
Let's build an example. Imagine someone asks you, tell me about a time you faced a challenge. This is not just a question about events, it's a question about your personality under pressure.
Right. A strong response could be, there was a situation where I had to speak in front of a group and I wasn't fully prepared. At first, I felt nervous, but I decided to stay calm, organize my thoughts, and speak step by step.
Notice what happens there. You are not saying, I am confident. You are showing how you behave when you are nervous.
And that makes your personality real and believable.
Now let's make it even more natural. Instead of ending with a result only, you can add reflection like, after that experience, I realized I perform better when I stay focused rather than overthinking.
That reflection part is very important. It shows growth, not just action.
Let's take another example. Imagine someone asks, tell me about a time you worked with others.
A natural answer could be, I remember working in a group where everyone had different opinions. At first, it felt confusing, but I tried to listen carefully to everyone before sharing my own thoughts so we could reach a balanced decision.
That sentence already shows your personality: patient, thoughtful, and cooperative.
And the best part is, you never directly said those words. People just understood it.
Now here's a question for everyone listening. Do you think stories are easier to remember than definitions?
Most people will say yes. And that's exactly why storytelling is the key to sounding natural in English.
Because when you speak in stories, your personality becomes unforgettable.
Let's go deeper. Instead of saying, I am emotional, you can tell a story like, there was a moment when someone close to me was going through a hard time, and I realized I was deeply affected by it. I needed some time to process my feelings before responding.
That is far more powerful than a single word.
It shows emotional depth without labeling yourself.
Now let's talk about everyday personality storytelling. For example, instead of saying, I am introverted, you can say, I usually prefer quiet environments and I enjoy observing things before joining conversations.
That feels natural and honest. It doesn't sound like a label. It sounds like real behavior.
And here's something important. Storytelling doesn't mean long dramatic stories. Even small daily situations can show personality.
Exactly. For example, today I met someone new and I took a few minutes before speaking freely, but later I felt comfortable and enjoyed the conversation.
That simple sentence already shows your social personality.
Let's make it interactive. Think right now. What is one small moment from your day that shows your personality?
Was it how you reacted to a problem? Or how you spoke to someone new? Or how you handled pressure?
Because every small moment is actually a personality signal in disguise.
And when you learn to notice these moments, your English speaking becomes more natural and expressive automatically.
Now let's go one level deeper. In real conversations, people don't just ask, who are you? They ask things like, how do you usually handle situations? Or what do you do when things go wrong?
And storytelling helps you answer all of these naturally.
For example, when things don't go as planned, I usually take a step back, think for a moment, and then decide my next action instead of reacting immediately.
That sounds calm, controlled, and mature.
And that is exactly how personality is communicated in advanced English speaking.
So remember this, you don't need perfect words to express personality. You need real experiences explained clearly.
Because when your experiences speak, your personality speaks automatically.
And in the final flow of this topic, we'll bring everything together, how to combine personality, confidence, and natural English so your speech feels effortless in any situation. Now, everything we've talked about comes together in this final idea. Your personality in English is not something you memorize, it's something you perform naturally through confidence, clarity, and consistency.
Exactly, Jessica. And if someone only remembers one thing from this entire discussion, it should be this: you don't say personality, express it in real time.
Let's connect all the pieces now. First, we learned that personality is not one fixed sentence like I am shy or I am confident. It's a collection of behaviors, reactions, and patterns.
And then we learned how to describe it in different situations: casual, formal, emotional, and professional, without sounding robotic.
After that, we moved into responses. Because real personality is shown when someone says something to you and you react naturally, not when you prepare a speech.
And then storytelling, which is probably the most powerful part, because stories make your personality visible without you even labeling it.
Now let's bring it all together in real speaking. Imagine someone asks you right now, what kind of person are you?
A fluent, natural answer could be, I would say I'm someone who adapts depending on the situation. I take time to understand people, and once I feel comfortable, I become more open and expressive.
That one answer includes everything: flexibility, self awareness, and real personality expression.
Now imagine a more emotional question. How do you handle stress?
You could say, when I'm under pressure, I try to stay calm and focus on one step at a time instead of thinking about everything at once.
That shows control, not just personality, it shows mindset.
And that's the difference. Advanced English is not just about describing who you are, it's about showing how you think.
Let's ask one final reflection question. If someone met you for only 2 minutes, what impression of your personality would they take from your English?
Because that impression is already happening in every conversation you have, whether you notice it or not.
And here's the truth. Most people underestimate how powerful their speaking style is. They focus on vocabulary, but forget that personality is what people remember.
So instead of trying to sound perfect, focus on sounding reasonable, structured, and confident in how you express yourself.
Let's quickly summarize the transformation.
Instead of saying, I am shy, you say, I take time to open up, but I become more expressive once I feel comfortable.
Instead of saying, I am confident, you say, I feel confident when I understand the situation and have prepared myself.
Instead of saying, I am emotional, you say, I tend to feel things deeply, especially when they matter to me.
And instead of labeling yourself, you describe your behavior.
That's the shift that changes everything in your English speaking journey.
Now let's make this final moment powerful for everyone listening. Think about one sentence that truly represents your personality in real life, not just in English class.
And then ask yourself, can you expand that sentence into a real explanation instead of just a label?
Because if you can do that, your English will instantly sound more natural, more fluent, and more human.
And remember, personality is not something you hide behind words. It's something you show through them.
So speak clearly, speak honestly, and most importantly, speak like yourself, not like a textbook.
And that's what makes your English unforgettable. Before we wrap up today, just take a second and think, how often do you actually express your real personality when you speak English, instead of just trying to find the correct words?
Because that's the real shift we talked about today. It's not about perfect grammar or memorized lines. It's about sounding like yourself in a natural and confident way.
If you take even one thing from this, let it be this. Don't describe yourself in labels. Describe yourself in experiences, in behavior, in real moments.
And slowly, you'll notice something powerful. Your English stops sounding like a language you learned and starts sounding like a voice that belongs to you.
So now I want you to try something simple. Next time someone asks you about your personality, don't rush. Take a moment and explain it naturally, like a story, not a definition.
And remember, confidence doesn't come from speaking fast or using big words. It comes from being clear, calm, and real with what you say.
If this helped you understand personality in English in a deeper way, keep practicing these patterns in your daily conversations.
Because fluency is built in real moments, not just in lessons.
That's all for today. And keep speaking English in a way that feels like you.